can't leave now, Ron.
I'm out of here.
Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the work session of the City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, to be held February 11th, 2020 at 6 p.m. If we could please have the clerk take roll.
Sorry, Mayor.
That's okay.
Have to put everything away for the art walk. Councilmember Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Hulse.
Here.
Councilmember Naren.
Here.
Councilmember Wilden.
Here.
Vice Mayor Matthews is absent. Councilmember Howdig is absent. Mayor Alinsky.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, it's a work session. We have items for discussion, consideration, and possible direction to staff. First item tonight is presentation, discussion, and possible direction to staff regarding the National League of Cities Utility Service Line Warranty Program.
Mayor and Council, this is a program provided by the National League of Cities, the NLC, obviously, Service Line Warranty Program. Today I have Ashley Shaworski. Close enough. And she's going to go ahead and present the program itself. This is one of many programs that the League of Arizona Cities provides. They provide several different programs that are sponsored by them. And this is just another one of those programs that's available to our community. So I'll let her go through it, and I'll be happy to, and her and I will tag team on it on questions.
Great, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you all for having me here this evening. My name's Ashley Shaworski, and I represent the National League of Cities Service Line Program. Our Service Line Program is the only one that's endorsed by the National League of Cities, but also here in Arizona by the League of Arizona Cities and Towns. The company, though, that I actually work for is called Utility Service Partners, and we administer this program. And we are a Better Business Bureau business with an A+ rating, as well as we did win the Torch Award for Marketplace Ethics from the Better Business Bureau. So that is something that we're always proud of and are striving to maintain that high level of ethical standards while conducting business. What our program really is designed to do is to help address the public policy issue of our aging infrastructure. We know that communities all across the United States really do their part to either upgrade or maintain their public infrastructure, but the homeowners portion of these lines were kind of being forgotten about. So that's really why the National League of Cities went out and did research. They wanted to make a program like ours readily and easily available to cities and towns all across the United States. So they went out, did the research on your behalf, and we were the company that they did choose to provide this program. So what we would do is we would partner with the city in order to make our completely optional program available to your homeowners here. And we provide your residents with completely optional protection on their external water or well lines, sewer or septic lines, as well as their in-home plumbing. And we always provide these services with a complete turnkey approach for the city, where we handle all the aspects of the program. We do the marketing, the billing, the claims management, and customer service. And there's always absolutely no cost to the city if you choose to participate in the program, and the city would receive an incremental revenue stream for their participation as well. What I always think is the best benefit of our program is that it simply helps to raise awareness. Pretty much every city that I ever speak with, I normally do hear that same type of thing, that when a resident does have some type of issue with one of their external lines, a lot of time their first call is to someone here at the city. And then someone's left being that unfortunate bearer of bad news, explaining to a resident that these lines are not covered by the city or typically their homeowner's insurance. So that's really why I think of our program as a free public awareness campaign, because all of the residents there would receive a letter in the mail from us, and the beginning of that is educational. So that way, even if someone doesn't enroll, at least in the future, they are well aware of what their responsibility is, and just that the city did try to take a proactive approach at helping to educate them of that. Also, a huge benefit of our program is that we only use plumbers from the local area to do all of our work. We do that for a lot of reasons. Mainly we want to keep as much money here within your economy as possible. But also local plumbers are familiar with your local codes. We'll make sure to do the work up to our standards as well as yours, which includes to get all of the proper permits for those work. And what happens is if we did partner with your city, we develop a contractor network that would specifically service your claims here. And the city can be as much or as little involved in that as they would like. Where some partners will provide us a list of plumbers that they're familiar with or already working with. Some want to stay out of it. Either option is fine. But with all of the plumbers, for them to join the network, we go through a detailed vetting process where not only we make sure that they are from the local area, that they have all of the proper licensing and insurance, no type of open complaints with the Better Business Bureau, but we also conduct background checks and drug screenings because we want to make sure that it's someone that a resident always feels completely comfortable with coming to their home, but also inside of their home. And then as for our coverage, the important thing, what we actually cover with our program, we do have 3 completely separate and voluntary programs. We have an external water line coverage, external sewer line coverage, as well as our in-home plumbing. Our 2 external products are kind of set up pretty much identically, where we begin to cover those lines wherever they begin to be the resident's responsibility, all the way to where they would enter their home. So that way, if a resident here were to be having an issue, whether it was a broken, a cracked, a leaking pipe, a tree root issue, a clog that needs cleared out, really anything that would impede the flow of their lines, as well as we do cover the thawing of frozen external water lines. We make it real easy for the resident. They just make a quick call to us. We send out the plumber, and then the plumber would bill us for the service. But what your resident receives for their coverage is actually up to $8,500 towards each and every repair incident. So that is something that separates us from other companies out there, is that ours is always on a per incident basis. So we never have an annual or a lifetime limit, as well as we never limit the number of incidents or claims that anyone can have in a calendar year. So again, your resident does always receive up to $8,500 towards each and every incident. And we never have any type of service fee or deductible, because we would never want, that $100 deductible to deter anyone from actually giving us a call and getting their issues taken care of. And then we do have a 3rd product, which is our in-home plumbing. And this one was really developed by request of our current municipal partners, as it kind of was that missing piece of the puzzle. And this covers any of the water, sewer, or drain lines that are actually in the home after the point of entry that either may be broken or leaking. It also includes any lines that may be embedded under a slab or a basement floor, and coverage for the repair of clogged toilets. And this is similar again, where there's never a service fee or deductible, no annual or lifetime limit, never a limit on number of claims, and the in-home is up to $3,000 towards each and every repair incident. And we really do come to find that when someone chooses to enroll in any of our options, they are a little bit more proactive about getting their issues taken care of, because everyone is always nervous to call that plumber, because they have no idea what it's going to cost. But now the resident knows the cost of determining their issue and getting it taken care of is not coming out of their own pocket. And then I know I mentioned at the very beginning a feature of our program is the revenue that the city does receive. So what the city would receive in return for their partnership with us is 50 cents per month per paid warranty contract. So essentially, if a resident did choose all 3 of our options, the water, the sewer, and the in-home plumbing, then the city could receive up to $1.50 per month per household. And that is paid to in the form of a revenue every January. And a lot of our partners do different things with this. Obviously, anyone could do anything that they like, and some do just put it into the general fund. But we also do have some partners that will use it to help a resident that may be having trouble paying one of their utility bills from month to month. Some will use it for different types of social services programs that they already have initiated here within the community. And we even do have a partner that uses it to go towards their fall festival. So it's really however you all see fit. And then lastly, I know the big thing everyone always wants to know is how we market the program. So we only ever market by direct mail. So you don't have to worry about us calling door to door, anything like that. We typically have 3 mail campaigns in a calendar year, in the spring, the fall, and the winter. And the reason why we have the multiple campaigns is because we offer those multiple products. But one nice thing is we never send anything out unless we have your review and approval prior. So we always want everyone here to not only know what the residents are receiving, but have input on what they do receive. Once we get the approval, we let you know the date that we would send those out. And if we don't receive the approval, then we never mailed to your residents for that campaign. So the city always does have complete control on if and when a letter were to go out. And just to give you a quick idea of what that normally looks like, the beginning, as I mentioned, is that educational piece, just really letting a resident know exactly what their responsibility is for these lines. Even has a little diagram so they know what we're talking about. But then it is an introductory letter where the city would introduce the program to its homeowners, but it always clearly states that we are a separate company providing this, as well as it is 100% optional. The letter does include the city's either logo or letterhead, that way your residents know that this is the program you all are participating in, but the bottom of that has all of our information, our logo. Our phone number is the only number on there, so they call us with questions or to enroll. Same thing with our website, they can go there for lots of information or enroll directly on our website. Or they can return the bottom of that form directly to us. So really the city's involvement in the program is just in that introductory piece. But once someone chooses to enroll, all of that correspondence is directly between us and them. We know you all have more than enough going on here, so we do handle all the aspects. We do the marketing, the billing, the claims, and the customer service. Really, by partnering with us, I just think that the city is making a program available to the residents that otherwise would not be. And just to give you an idea, we do have over 700 partners all across the United States. We now have 27 in Arizona. We have one new one as of a couple weeks ago. And I know I've just rambled on to you all, so I'm sure you also may have some questions for me as well.
Any questions for Ms. Jaworski?
Of course. Some quick ones. What sort of fees? Is it based on square footage, or how does that work?
Sure. So if the program was available, in the city, it's available to everyone at the same price. So it doesn't matter on size, length of line, age of home, anything like that. And the pricing is it's $5.75 a month for the water line warranty, $7.75 a month for the sewer line warranty, and $9.99 a month for the in-home plumbing. And those are all separate, all 100% optional. A resident can pay us lots of ways, but no matter how they pay, it is always month to month. So even if someone signs up for a year in advance and decides to cancel, all they do is make a quick call to us and we would refund any unused premium.
Is there a waiting period?
There is a 30-day waiting period.
Do you have any of the partners that you work with that offer combined billing on their municipal bill that goes out for the water or sewer?
I think we only currently have one that does that. Typically, most municipalities don't want to get into that and worry about, if someone cancels and different things like that. So we typically handle all of that. I think the only one that we do is Omaha Public Power, which is like a big utility.
Okay, staff is getting very nervous behind you right
Yes.
now. I was only curious. I wasn't saying we were going to do it. Another question I have is, do you offer a program similar to this for county residents?
So, we don't have anything available in this county currently. I did work with the county of Pinal to kind of get all the unincorporated areas in that county. We could make it available. Do you provide any utilities to the county residents, or?
We do.
Water. So we can make it available to anyone that you provide services to.
Okay.
Yeah. That would just be, typically we have two ways of getting our mailing list. We can go out and purchase the mailing list, but if you can provide it, that way we'll make sure to reach any of those outlying residents.
Okay.
Do you have any information or numbers about claims denial rates or, partial or full denial of claims?
Sure. So over 99% of our claims are approved. Typically, we have, obviously it does happen. Sometimes it's, a resident calls to file a claim on the water line and they are enrolled in the sewer line, or maybe it's in the home and they enrolled in the exterior. And we don't cover irrigation lines or different apparatuses like that. Our main goal is for that lateral. So sometimes people are calling for their, sprinkler system out front. So that's, I'd say those are our most common denials.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. Mr. Rodriguez, did you have more for us?
And all we're asking for is for direction from council if they wish to pursue it. One of the things that we want to be sure of, that any kind of correspondence that comes out of the city is reviewed by staff and our attorney to make sure that everything's fine before it goes out. We want to make sure that we don't find ourselves in the middle of anything. But outside of that, I think if council is fine with it, I think we still need to review the agreement.
We'd bring it back to council if there's direction to.
Right.
And I appreciate that concern about the marketing materials, but it's not just that. We're basically endorsing a program and relying on the information that we're given, with this 9 out of every 10 customers surveyed. Well, how many customers have been surveyed as opposed to the total number of customers? Consistent customer satisfaction rating of 98%. I mean, we don't have really good quantifiable data as far as the program, and yet we're endorsing the program. And so I don't know if there is additional information that can be provided, or if the agreement will allow us to be able to terminate with limited notice period or something that we can build in, because dealing with as much insurance defense matters as I do, when we're putting our logo and up to 6 3 campaigns, 6 mailings. So is that 18 mailings in total a year? That seems like a significant amount.
So we have 3 campaigns per year, which is a total of up to 6 mailings. What one campaign is, and we send 1 letter and then a reminder 2 weeks later. So it's the same campaign, but they might up to 6 letters. We never have more than 3 campaigns in a year, as well as we would never send it out unless we have your approval before each of those campaigns. So if you feel like you've had enough this year, just don't approve the letter. And we would never mail, and our agreement specifically states that we won't mail unless we have your approval. So that is in there. And we can't put a 90-day term for convenience in the agreement too.
Okay, just so that if we're, Safeway is the common example, but I can just see somebody who had a claim denied or wasn't happy with how the claim was handled, and that can turn into a really big deal in a small town. Sure. So if we can build in something like that, then I think I heard from a homeowner who was in Old Town recently. I think many of us on council might have heard from that same homeowner. So I think it's important to have insurance available for these types of issues. I'm just wanting to make sure that if we're being affiliated and or seen as endorsing the program, that we're able to bail if it's not really a good quality product. Not that it isn't.
I understand. My dad's an elected official, so I get it.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Henry, we share your same concerns. The marketing can be the life or death of this, depending on what it looks like. I can tell you that in one of my roles in the city of Yuma, I was not involved in the process, so I was watching this from the side, and it backfired. They ended up having the mayor sign a letter directly, and it looked like the mayor had personally endorsed it on behalf of the city, and then because of the payment where you get the money back, the city does, then people were accusing him of pocketing this extra. And we ended up, to the best of my knowledge, and I don't even know if it was the same organization, but we ended up canceling the contract because it was just politically unfavorable, not because of their service and not really because of what they did. It was an internal error. The city's error, not their error. So I'll be especially careful on how the marketing goes out, having, at least from a side view, watch this go down the wrong way. But like you, often residents don't understand where our water responsibilities or wastewater line responsibilities begin and end. And it's always, can be very shocking when they get that bill or when they have to pay for fixing the line in their yard. So it is a great program. Again, how we administer it, how they administer it will be very important. I would not bring this back if there wasn't an exit clause because I'm a little nervous based on my experience in Yuma.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
I would just say I actually worked with Yuma, so I know all how it worked. But yeah, they didn't even have a term for convenience, and we let them out of the agreement. We don't want to keep someone in an agreement that they're not happy with. And some changes we have made since then, we do not use any person's signature on our letter, so we don't use like the mayor's signature or anything like that. As well as we started using a co-logo in the state of Arizona. So it used to only be your logo at the top and ours at the bottom, but at the top now it says your logo in partnership or something along those lines with ours. So we have made a few changes. As well as that letter is not set in stone. We never send it out unless we have your approval. And I think some of the misconception in Yuma was the staff approved it but didn't run it by the.
It was an internal.
Okay.
So.
It was an internal error.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Nairn, did you have any questions or anything you wanted to add to the conversation?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, I agree with Councilmember Henry. I think we have to be careful about the optics of it, especially given what you experienced in Yuma. But I think a program like this, I think, would be really beneficial to a lot of our homeowners, especially in neighborhoods where there is aging infrastructure. So I'm fine with doing some more due diligence on have staff come back and present us with signing up or not.
Mr. Mayor, so we'll bring the contract back next time, but we'll get we have contacts in some of those towns. Rudy has been around a little while, so we'll reach out to some of those organizations and make some contacts to just verify that they haven't had any issues.
Sure, that'd be great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. Okay, next on the agenda is review and selection of the city's 60th anniversary logo.
One right above it. Yeah, one right there. Yeah.
All right. Okay, Mayor, Council, as some of you know, that this year marks our 60th anniversary of the City of Cottonwood becoming incorporated back in November 14th of 1960. We became incorporated as the town of Clarkdale. Years later, we became the City of Clarkdale.
Cottonwood?
I mean, Cottonwood.
That's good.
Oh. All right.
Where am I?
Tough getting old. See, all these old jokes are getting. Okay. And we've had Kirsten, not our Kirsten Lennon, Kirsten Hastings over at Parks and Rec, who does a lot of our marketing and graphic design, came up with several renditions of what we could possibly use, incorporating the city's logo, the city's tagline, and also incorporating the 60th anniversary. So she gave us several options. We brought these options to the executive committee for them to vote, and the results basically came out overwhelmingly. Number 3 was the choice of the executive committee. Now that doesn't mean that's the one we need to pick. That's why it's here. The number 2 vote getter with only 1 vote happened to be number 1 on the far upper left-hand, still did the upper left-hand corner. So 1 for 1, and we had about 7 or 8 for number 3. All the others, they kind of felt that they just didn't have either enough, didn't need to show off the 60th anniversary, or it wasn't much different than our current logo. One of the things we would like to do is start using this on our letterhead for the year only as letterhead, maybe develop some pins, some kind of maybe challenge coins, something to commemorate the many successes that the City of Cottonwood has had over the 60 years. Last time we did this was at our 50th anniversary. This marks the 60th, and we want to just make sure that we want to kind of make sure that everyone is aware, not just in Cottonwood, but throughout the state of Arizona. We know that we go and travel to ACMA, we travel to GFOA, we travel to the League of Arizona Cities and Towns conferences. Especially that one is key for us to try to go ahead and promote ourselves. And we do it big every single year. We give out wine, we give out all kinds of things that really show off the City of Cottonwood, and this is one of those things that we would like to go ahead and do. I'd like to go ahead and get your feedback on what you think. One of our first events that we will be highlighting the logo at would be at our Vintage Run, formerly our Mickelson Marathon, or half marathon, and that's what we will be using this as our first actual event. In the meantime, we'll be distributing it to the rest of the employees to go ahead and substitute for our letterhead and any type of other emails, social media opportunities that we have.
I'm glad you didn't say you were going to unveil it at Clark Totally. I would have really questioned what's going on around here.
What can I say?
I agree. I think number 3 is top on my list. Yeah, looks great.
I agree. There's really 2 that draw your eye to it, 3 and 4. And 4 is just really nothing. It just stands out. And 3 has the grape leaves and other things, and it really draws your eye to it. So I like 3 as well.
I agree.
I would agree with number 3 as well.
Only thing we would be taking off at the TH, only because we can't very well do something that would be kind of like a little ear sticking out of anything that we do, pins and stuff, and chances it would break anyways. So we're looking at it without the TH, just 60. And then, of course, anniversary, so 1960. Now, just for your information, I have been talking with Jack Teal, who now is handling all the programming for Parks and Rec, and we're looking to try to make the November 14th, 2020, the day we actually became incorporated, as a very special day for the city of Cottonwood. We're not sure exactly what we're going to put together, but I'm certain he will put something together that'll really stand out. So I think it would be a good celebration for us.
Sure, take my initials off of the logo.
Win today.
So weighing in on my favorites were actually 3 and 6. I don't like watering down a brand. We're really struggling to rebrand. And my only concern, the reason why number 3, I don't like the initials. I was just teasing about obviously having the TH there. My only concern with number 3 is that we are moving away from the heart of Arizona wine country, and I don't really see any way to put that on there. So I think it is a nice compromise. It's a lot more fun than number 6 is, and I think it's a good compromise to commemorate the 60th anniversary. But I don't want to dilute the brand too much or move away from the heart of Arizona wine country too much. But as Deb said, as Councilmember Weldon said, we do have the grape leaves there, so I guess we're not getting too diluted, I guess. So I'll go with number 3 after that rambling spiel. I think it looks good, and good job to Kirsten. And now I'm because I thought Kirsten did the bumper stickers.
Nope.
The other bumper stickers?
Yeah, they were all done.
So everything was done. Oh, okay.
Not a graphic
Okay.
She's good at numbers.
Good at numbers.
Good. So I think number 3 is good.
Okay. I think,
Well,
Mr. Holst, did you?
Yeah.
You chimed in, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
If council is fine with it, we'll go ahead and move forward with using this. Now, I understand that this is only for this year. After December 31st, we go back to our old logo.
Now, what is the cost to reprint letterhead, though?
We traditionally don't reprint letterhead.
Okay.
Occasionally, there might be a few things that we do out there, but nowadays with the digital, we just give them the logo and it goes right straight on our letterheads. They can go ahead and just replace the logo, put it up on the logo, on the letterhead.
So Mayor, Councilmember, we don't pre-print letterheads.
Okay.
So it comes off the Word document. So it'll be a graphic that we share with the city. So there will be no spending of money on that kind of thing. The only thing is we will, through the budget process, try to get, and through probably economic development, where's Richard at? Challenge coins or pins and those kinds of things. But as far as daily use stuff, we're not going to spend a lot of money and have it sit on a shelf.
Excellent. I like it even more then. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, next is a fiscal year 2020 revenue and expenditure review and fiscal year 2021 budget process. You always get the squeaky one. I think it used to be here, and I might have switched it.
Yeah, well, Ruben may get a chair.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get that. It looks nicer. It's on TV.
You did a great job on the graphics, by the way, for this presentation. Really.
Ditto.
Yeah, every time they say Kirsten, I'm like, you think it's me? It's not me. I didn't do that. I am not that person. It's someone. It's because I'm the chair.
Because you're on the spot.
That's right. Don't put me on the spot.
If it pleases the mayor, we can have Rudy come up and talk about Clarkdale a little more if you'd like. That's fine. We can move on. We'll just we'll just use the PDF at this point.
I just wanted to make you guys feel a little longer. I really wish I could find the other one.
It's all right.
Leave it like that. I just wanted you to have a break. Thank you. Thanks. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Kirsten Lennon, the Financial Services Director. And today we're just going to kind of go briefly over the budget process and then over what our major revenue sources are. So the budget cycle, which you can't see it like that because it's kind of small. I can't see it either. It usually starts around October and November when we send out all the information to the department heads to start planning for their goals and accomplishments and start looking at what capital and personnel they may want and to kind of go over what they think that they're going to need for the next year and start looking at what they're going to do, finish in the current year. And then we go to your strategic plan in December and we hear what your direction is so that we can make sure we are matching that strategic plan. And then we start getting all of our budget worksheets together, which is their last year's budget, where they currently are, and then their estimate for where they think they're going to end the year and for next year. And then we meet with all the department heads and discuss that budget and cut and figure out really what they truly do need for the year. And then in March and April, we review those. We bring it back to you in April and May, and then we usually adopt our tentative budget by June or July, and then our final budget a month after, and then we submit it to the GFOA for a budget presentation award, and then we start all over in November. So it's a very long, ongoing process. It never ends for us at the finance department. We are always working on the budget, because even during, when we're not creating it, we are reviewing it for that year with the departments. So the budget calendar is on the next two slides, and it just kind of goes over when the days we currently have set, and this is tentative. It does change because we don't always meet our own deadlines for getting things prepared, but we always try to make sure that we put the adoption of the tentative budget has to be adopted before the second Monday in July. That's the state statute. So our document overview, just a little brief summary on what makes up the whole entire budget document. And it starts out with an executive summary that is a narrative that talks about our well-being and our fiscal responsibility and what the budget process is. And it also has a strategic plan that talks about our 5-year projections of our capital needs and what our maintenance and operations are going to cost. And then we go into major revenues and the description and the history of those revenues. And then there's a comprehensive summary, which is all of the funds combined that shows the total budget. And that gives you what your total budget and your expenditure limitation is. And then we go to the oops, I went too far. The financial information, and it's broken out by fund. You have your general fund, and then you have your section for your special revenue funds, and then enterprise funds and fiduciary funds, debt service and capital improvement funds. And the general fund is usually, and for most governments, is their biggest fund. And then the enterprise funds are business type funds, which is our water and our wastewater. And then in every fund, there's all the departments that make up those funds, which the general fund is the largest with all the major services, administration, legal, purchasing, finance, IT, those types of things. And then special revenues are mostly HERF, highway user revenue funds, the library, grant funds, and transit program. And then you have your debt service and your capital improvements fund. So our major revenue sources are all listed here. I'm not going to read them off because you can read them. Our highest revenue source is our local transaction privilege tax, which is currently set at 3.5%. It was 3% until November of 2018 when we voted to raise it. And taxes are 24% of our overall budget and 50% of our general fund budget. So it's a large portion of what funds the city. And I did include the 0.5% to show you what that increase did for that slide. So when we enacted the 0.5-cent TPT increase, Council, you directed us to put aside some of that money for certain items. You wanted money to go towards HERF and roads and transit and transportation. You wanted money to go to reserves, and you wanted money to go to the pension liability and be set aside, and then the remainder went to the general fund for operations. And for 2019, you can see that the additional 0.5-cent sales tax was $1.5 million, and you can see the breakdown of where that money went for that amount of money. So 37% went to HERF and transit, 16% was $240,000 went to reserves, and then $152,000 went to the pension liability. So for 2020 budget, when we did our budget presentations, we allocated those revenues to a similar breakdown as in the 2019. 25% to HERF, 20% to transit, 15% to reserves, 10% to capital improvements, 10% to the pension liability, and then 20% went to general fund operations. You did elect and directed staff to put that pension reserve money towards sidewalks instead of towards the pension liability, and we did. So that was a $260,000 that got budgeted in this fiscal year for sidewalks, which they started.
They did. They started today. Robert's not here. If I can interrupt for just a quick second, let her catch her breath for a minute. I want to talk briefly about that PSPRS debt service. So they've come up with a tool where we'll be able to plug in. They're supposed to come up with a tool where we'll be able to plug in the amount of money that we're to allocate extra into the retirement account and see the long-term impact of that to see if it brings down our debt by any significant amount. So last year, staff made a recommendation to you. You believed us, and we went with that. We're hoping before we get to this portion of the budget in April or May, they finish that tool. So we'll be actually able to show you, and you'll be able to make a decision based on their numbers on the impact it will or won't have on the long-term debt service of that PSPRS debt. Mm-hmm. So we're hoping, they've claimed it's close, they're ready to have it done, but one of the things that employers have asked for years is to be able to look at the debt locally, whether it be our payroll increases, our life expectancy, our salary growth, those kinds of things, and plug it in and figure out what the long-term look is going to be for that debt. So we're hoping to to have that done, and you'll be able to make a more informed decision on whether to continue to add it to sidewalks. Like I said, because of that money you're allocated, we still have 3 sidewalk projects scheduled. One just started. We're notifying neighbors no later than next week on the next project, and we're trying to wrap up by the end of the month some agreements to do the 3rd section. So we're looking forward to it, but we'll be able to give you better information.
So another one of our major revenue streams is urban revenue share. The state projects these numbers based on 2 years prior calculations. So this is set. Whatever they tell us we're getting, that's what we get. They break it out through the 12-month period. The governor's budget this year did talk about how they want to make a retroactive change to public service pension pay and not have it be taxable. And if they do that, then they have said that they will reduce the portion of urban revenue share that goes to cities and towns by about $6.9 million. So that could affect our budget next year if they elect to do that.
By how much would it?
So that, I don't know how much our portion would be, but overall the state, they would plan on reducing the amount distributed to the other cities and towns by 6.9 million.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can add, you normally expect an increase, especially with the state doing as well as it's doing. This would, at a minimum, decrease our increase, but we would expect it would flatten this number, which I think is bad for cities and towns.
Absolutely.
So we also get a portion of state shared transaction privilege tax. These revenues are based on city population, and this is also given to us by the state and how much they will allocate. It does fluctuate a little bit usually from what they estimate. So we also get vehicle license tax. This is 25% of the net revenues collected by the county, and it's split between the cities based on their population. So whatever Yavapai County brings in. And then we have some investment income. This is the interest that we earn on our investments. And our investments have been reduced. We use a lot of those reserves to do projects, to build things, to do some roads, to do the wastewater treatment plant at Riverfront, to do a communications center, to do lots of other things. So that money is pretty low. So our interest isn't that high, plus interest rates aren't that great. They raised them, now they've lowered them again. So it's not a stable revenue source, to say the least. And as you can see for our 2020 estimate, that was based on our 2018 numbers when we were doing our budget. And so this is our budget estimate. So I think that we will probably end up a little bit higher than what our budget estimate was. So building permits, this is another major revenue. And we did an increase at July 1st, but we didn't budget for that increase. So this will probably show up higher in the budget than it's showing on this sheet, because we try not to budget for an increase unless it is confirmed. And we didn't know at the time we were creating the budget.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can just add to that slide, I'm expecting that number to flatten a little bit over the next year. The number of permits have slowed down a little bit. You'll get an update in the next month or two from Scott, but I don't know that we have as many big projects. Walmart, hospital, wrapping up some of those bigger projects that we're paying permit fees are starting to wrap up on the commercial side. So I expect that number to flatten a little bit.
Fines and forfeitures. This is a pretty stable for the last few years. It's kind of grown a little bit. And we, obviously 2020 is lower because it's based on the 2018 number, and we were at 200 and we thought we'd be a little bit lower. So you'll have to ask the judge what it's going to be at the end of the year.
Well, she tells us that on a monthly basis, yep. And those numbers are also down. They're just down.
Less people committing crime, that's a good thing, right? And then we have franchise fees, which this is a set amount for utilities, electric, cable, not water, because we have our own water, and gas. And And they're pretty stable at this point. It's projected to go up a little bit for 2020, and we'll see where it is at the end of 2020 to determine what 2021 looks like. Then we have our HERF fund revenues, highway user revenue funds. So this is a fund that the state often decides to take money from when they need revenue for their DPS or to cover their pension liabilities. And they did give money back this year. They gave a one-time allocation of $192,000 to us. And we only budgeted $150,000, so it was a little bit higher than what we anticipated. And hopefully they're not going to raise it again because they're getting ready to eliminate the fee that they had enacted to cover the DPS costs was $32, and now they're going to eliminate it. And so they'll have to find the funding for DPS from somewhere else.
That's just sunsetting, right, and not being renewed. It's not actually being eliminated.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Henry, they're trying to move it faster than it was supposed to sunset, and they're actually trying to eliminate it this year. The state does have what they consider lots of revenue, and so I'm sure that they'll have the money this year to not affect our HERF distribution. We are asking for additional, the League of Cities and Towns is asking for another additional HERF funding this year. It's really in the future by not having a dedicated revenue source to pay their debt for their PSPRS debt and for their officers and their programs. So that's what I'm really concerned about. It's probably not this year. It's just going back to the general fund to address their issues, and when that happens, HERF is always on the table. And Mr. Mayor, if I can, real quick, it looked like Councilmember Henry, you asked about the impact to the city if they were to change that one tax, and it was about a $14,000 impact to the city.
So wastewater user fees, obviously these fees are charged the customer to cover the expense of an operation for the wastewater plant. And we raised the rate as of September 2019. So that is not in the projection for 2020 because we didn't know if it was going to be enacted or not. So it's not in the projection for 2020. And then we also, it was brought to you and elected to have a set fee for the next increase for the next 4 years after that. So the rate is projected to increase as of July 1st. And then water service user fees are for their water service, and it did not get increased in 2020, the budget year 2020, but it should be increased as of July 1st of 2021, and for the next 4 years after that, or 3 years after that.
Can I ask a question, please? What are the conservation fees used for? Is that just for the general operations of the
water
department?
They have conservation fees, adjudication fees, resource development, and another fee, and they are used for conservation programs, and those types of things. The adjudication's used for the water, trying to defend our water rights with Tom. Tom gets to have that fun.
And Dan, but our programs that we have with elementary schools are paid for out of the conservation fund. We have money set aside if we were to do something with water conservation, you know, buy back grass. There's different things we could do. There is a little bit of money in there, but it's right now mostly used for education.
Okay, thank you.
So I presented this slide at the strategic plan. It's our 10-year historical fund balance. And like I said at the strategic meeting, it went up this year. Our fund balance went up. We did that half-cent sales tax really helped us in reserving some funds for future years. And so hopefully it will go up again next year.
Not hopefully, it will.
I say hopefully.
It will.
Okay, so this graph shows our resources compared to our costs and our fund balance. And in the blue line is all of our costs. The orange is the resources, and then the gray is the fund balance. And you can see there have been years where our costs are higher than our resources, but for 2019, we did end the year with our costs lower than our resources. So that is why our fund balance increased. So sales tax collected, in the slide earlier, you saw that, we did bring in a total of $16 million in 2019 for sales tax. And the increase of a half cent was 1.5 million, and that our projection for 2020 is that we will bring in 18 million, and the half cent will bring in almost $3 million. And I had projected that we would be at about 2% last year, ending 2019, to 2% above the year before, and 2% for 2020. And we were close. We hit close to that mark. So far this year, we are about halfway to our budgeted amount as of December. I haven't gotten Christmas figures yet, but as of December, we are about halfway to our 18 million. And even though Ron keeps pressuring me to tell him that there's more money, I won't tell him that. So our total taxable sales have gone up in 2019 and 2020 by about 2%. So with all that, do you have any questions about just our overview on the revenues or what our budget process will be?
Mr. Mayor, if I can, I know we have new council members who haven't been through the process before, so don't hesitate to ask or reach out to myself as we go through the next several months of this. Happy to answer questions. We will hold public meetings. We have meetings set up with community groups, so we're going to be out there a lot answering questions, so don't hesitate to reach out and have us answer your questions. I will commend Kirsten and team. You do have a conservative finance team, and she's not given me a dime yet, so kudos to her.
Very good.
I'm good at no.
I was pleased to see that you have a public meeting set up, to try to provide some outreach on the budget and get some feedback from the community. Can you go into a little bit more detail about how you plan on rolling that program out?
So I should let Rudy speak. He's already reached out to several community groups and set up meetings with them. Mary Ann will hold 1 or 2 town halls where we'll sit in this auditorium and wait. And then we will go out to staff twice again, like we did before. And then we will go to they're not town hall meetings, but budget meetings, and sit around and see if anybody shows up. Last year, we had one meeting that we outnumbered the attendees, but we had a couple that, they were better attended. So we'll do the same thing. We'll go out and really we got a roadshow, or we'll have a roadshow once we get closer to having numbers. And you just got to ask, and we'll go out there. We'll do Inside Cottonwood in March, I think it is, maybe April, but March or April, we'll do Inside Cottonwood, where Kirsten and Rudy will go over the budget with me. And then, like I said, he's reached out to Kiwanis.
We're trying to get as many sequestered groups as we can. Usually there are meetings with the Kiwanis Club is one of them, the Lions Club, and we're going to try to get in with the Rotary. Crestview said that they would host us too. So we're trying to hit HOAs everywhere we can that'll sit and listen to us. And also the idea of going just to show up at places doesn't seem to work very well. So we want to get sure we get in some of these HOAs and groups that hold regular meetings, and we'll kind of take about 10, 15 minutes of their time.
Okay.
So we're still looking for more and more people, and this will be late April, early May timeframe.
Okay.
When we actually have real numbers.
Right. And the other thing, just to talk about budget input, is we have several boards and commissions, and through their direct reports, through their support staff, we get input. There's one, Ryan's here tonight, he's speaking. His board has been talking about a program that I would like to fund. Parks and Rec they have lots of programs. So we also get input from our boards and commissions when creating the budget that we think they represent, we believe they represent, opinions out there in our community. So that's another way that we get input from residents.
Okay, great.
Are these strictly informational?
They can be both. The meetings we go to are usually two-way, and we'll take input and suggestions. The meeting we went last year at the Rotary, they had a ton of questions, and we were able to go back and forth and answer their questions. Sometimes they make suggestions, sometimes they don't understand. enterprise funds, how come you can't just move this money here, pay with it that? And so we explain those kinds of things. Staff meetings, I did 2 employee meetings. They gave ideas, suggestions that we worked through those. So really, we're open to all sorts. The town hall meeting, the idea was to listen, for us to listen. I mean, we had a presentation, but we were here to listen to the community. It was one that we didn't have anybody show up at, but...
Jackie showed up.
Oh, I apologize. Sorry, yes. But, we're... whatever somebody wants, we will find a way to be there.
Good. Well, I appreciate the outreach. I think it's important. And I think Crestview was a good turnout there at their meeting, of course. And I think if there's any other HOAs that want to invite staff or any elected to come and speak, I think the invitation's open.
Commons, the one we're going to incorporate into the city?
Which, yes.
Sawmill, the Sawmill Garden or Sawmill, what is it?
Sawmill Gardens, you're talking about the annexation?
Yeah.
I mean, we could listen. I mean, we'd be happy to go out there. I don't see why we wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're
we
waiting
went
for
to,
invitation.
last year we went to a Republican meeting, Mingus Mountain, I think it's called. And that's clearly both residents and non-residents. We're pretty an open book. So as long as there's some connection to the city, we'll be happy to show up.
Great. Okay, then we'll move into our pre-budget department presentations by council, administration, city clerk, finance, human resources, purchasing, municipal court, library, and economic development.
Hello again. We decided to change this format a little bit, and this PowerPoint is going to highlight 3 of their top accomplishments, 3 of their top goals, and any challenges they're facing, and I think they will be facing in 2020, and the different departments will speak for themselves. So first up, we have council and administration.
Please identify yourself, sir.
Mayor, council members, Ron Corbin, city manager. This one's kind of awkward because it's council. You guys, this is your guys's. We do most of that at the retreat. So I don't really go into a lot of detail on that one because we spent about 6 hours going over your goals and objectives for this upcoming year. So I'm going to go over a couple big things. And I think we have about 5 minutes. So tap me if I start getting too much there. No, do not turn the buzzer on, please. Do not turn the buzzer on. If you remember last year in January, I started. And so we had our retreat a few days into my tenure. We created a strategic plan. We then went out to our employees and they created the work items. Ryan led that project and we've been implementing it this year and I think we've done a pretty good job. And couldn't be prouder of the team and the staff to implement that strategic plan, and it hit the priorities, and it's real comfortable now for me to, when people ask me about what are the goals, and I start with the budget, conservative budgeting, that's our number 1 goal, increase reserves, evaluate staffing levels, and those kinds of things, and then infrastructure, economic development, outdoor activities, all of those are, I believe, your guys' priorities, and staff's been doing a pretty good job of hitting those marks, in my humble opinion. So kudos to them, first of all. So when we talk about our accomplishments, again, our budget grew at about 2%, our general fund. That's a conservative budget when it comes to spending. We kept payroll increased very little. Not only did we match compensation to sales tax growth, which is our primary source of revenue, we began our restructuring. And so we eliminated a couple of positions last year and then reorganized also, and we'll continue that for this next year. The other thing that staff did with your approval is that $100,000 community grant. Great things are happening out there because of that. We've helped a lot of organizations, and I think some different organizations. So you'll be hearing reports back at how that's going towards the end of the year when they turn in their reports and their accounting. So again, that was Jeff who's here, and Rudy and Kirsten and the team leading that project. Very excited about that. Not every city and organization has the ability to just spend back to nonprofits to make the community better. So I'm pretty proud of that accomplishment. For goals for this next year, you're not going to believe this, but continue with a conservative budget and increase reserves. I've been upfront and honest at all my leadership team meetings that that is our #1 priority, and that comes first, is making sure that our budget is that we're not spending more than we're bringing in, and that we budget only those things that are absolutely necessary. With that goes evaluating staffing levels. We just did that last week, or I believe it was last week. So Richard is retiring. We reconfigured that job, added duties, and lowered the pay grade. So more with less. Cindy has resigned, and I am not requesting to fill that position. We'll, not saying we won't fill it with another position in the budget process in another department, but it won't come back to my department. So we'll continue to evaluate our needs, and just because you've had it doesn't mean you always will get it. I am pretty, I review all hires. Anything that's above entry level, if they want to bring someone in above entry level, has to be proven. It's not an automatic. So I keep pretty tight controls on our hiring and authorizing of vacancies. All vacancies still have to be approved by me before they go out. It's nothing around here mistaken. Police officers, dispatchers, automatic. Everybody else has to get approval before we advertise those positions. Pretty tight there. And that will continue. And then the other one that came to my attention recently that is a bigger problem than I thought is that our public safety radios. So I wanted to put that one on here. We're not supposed to, I'm leading by example, we're not really asking for resources at this time. I just want you to know that it's one of my top priorities. And I've asked the IT department to come up with 2 options. One, to Band-Aid to really fix what we have, and then the other is to replace and upgrade and get it working the way it should be. And so I don't know what those costs are. I can tell you my experiences in Yuma. Radios are expensive. A radio program is very, very expensive. We were paying in Yuma, just for the city of Yuma, for our leases for radios only, not all the other equipment, was $1 million a year to lease them. They can be very expensive. But public safety, our officer safety, and public safety is important, but the safety of our officers, paramount. And so I want to make sure that our radios are working out there. So I've asked John to work with Chief Gazelle and come back with a proposal on that. So that'll be one of my top priorities. And then challenges for the next year, and I just want to lead the discussion that you'll hear periodically from some of the departments, and that's attracting and retaining highly qualified employees. The job market is tough. You know, whoever you want to give credit for the economy, it has positives, but when you're an employer, every employer, not just the city, has trouble recruiting and retaining highly qualified employees right now. We are now out for our 3rd time trying to hire a accounting specialist, maybe the title, because the quality of applicants at the level we've advertised is just not getting what we need. That's repeated through almost every single department. IT's on their 2nd recruitment for their IT person. I got 3 qualified applicants for the part-time airport manager. Now for the marketing specialist, I got a ton. We're doing phone interviews for 8. So sometimes it's getting the right grade in there, but it is tough market right now. Not because we're Cottonwood, but because it's tough. It needs to be addressed and looked at over the year. One of the things I will be asking for in the budget process is a market study to see where we're at, fix our current system. One of the forces on this is the increase in minimum wage. So 3, 4, 5 years ago, the number of jobs at minimum wage were about this many. Now there's about this many that are all being paid minimum wage. When I think people approved the voters approved the minimum wage increase, everybody thought everybody's wage would rise at that same rate. And that's not what happened. What happened was more jobs became minimum wage jobs. But that has a compression impact on our organization. Jack and I were talking the other day about lifeguards and water safety instructors. Water safety instructors takes more certification, more training, so they used to make $1.50 to $2 more an hour than lifeguards. Now they make the same because the compression is so tight. I can't bring in some of those WSIs at $14 or $15 an hour because now they're more than our supervisors in other departments. So I really would like to take a holistic approach instead of trying to Band-Aid this and look at our whole structure and then figure out a way to implement it over the next year or 2 after that. But employee structure for compensation is going to be important to make sure that we're competitive. Many other things I'm an HR director by training. Many things go into attracting and retaining highly qualified employees. Salary is just one of them. But the first thing salaries do is open the door. So you have to be a competitive wage to start the conversation. How you keep people, how you promote people, all that matters. But that entry-level salary matters when you go out to recruit people. So we'll be taking a look at that, a top priority there. And then workforce housing is a priority of this council. We'll keep trying different ways to address it. We just had 2 more apartment complexes go to code review. I'm very excited about that. One is small at about 5 rooms, and then one was, I think, 50 rooms. Don't quote me on that, but it was a significant number of rooms. So we've now got several apartment complex projects in the works. Again, it's going to take a multi-approach. You know, working with our other developers, whether it be 89 and Vine on the other side of the river, or whoever wants to work with us to find solutions. We're on board and we're all in trying to do those. Transit's a big piece of that. If you read the article about minimum wage in the paper, the people they interviewed from Sedona all said, well, of course we live in Cottonwood. Who can afford to live in Sedona? And so part of that success is our transit system. So it's a holistic approach, and it'll remain a top priority for me and the departments. And then, of course, economic development. And I think that we are we've been doing great things, and we're just going to get better, whether it be the wine industry, but also I had a meeting the other day with a couple of people in the tourism industry that were not wine related. And they're like, hey, don't forget about families. We are investing in outdoor activities, whether it be trails. We've got a grant that we're putting in several $1,000s at Riverfront Park. Morgan is working heavily with the trails group at the Verde Front, helping other people get grants to build trails, whether it be bike trails, walking trails, equestrian trails. We think it's a big deal to create outdoor opportunities when people come to visit us, because who doesn't love Old Town? Old Town is just absolutely wonderful. It's a gem, but we also need more opportunities for things to do, stay longer and come back. And so we're going to have a heavy focus on that and helping businesses be successful. So a lot of my effort and our team's effort will be working on economic development. And of course, let's not forget the traditional outreach, recruitment, finding land, making connections and all the other stuff that economic developers do. But I'm looking forward to this next year. We've got a lot of, Richard, stick around for another year. We've got a lot, that was a no if you didn't hear. We just got a lot of projects getting ready to go across the finish line. We just had a meeting, staff had a meeting with Merkin's group for the pizzeria behind there. They brought in some hard plans on some issues that we had to resolve. Things are moving forward. I know council doesn't always see all the stuff behind the scenes, but things are moving forward, sometimes slower than we'd like, but there are things that just have to be ironed out. But I know staff is tired, but we're so close on so many things. But I'm very excited about what Cottonwood is getting ready to do over the next year or two, and I'm glad that I'm a part of it, and I'm glad that I have the team behind me that I do to help. And with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Questions?
Thank you.
Okay, good work. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, as Kirsten stated, she's constantly working on the budget. My department is constantly working on the preparation of council meeting information packets, which include posting agendas, producing the packets for the council, following up with the summary minutes and the regular minutes for council approval. This year, I also continued the operation management of the Cottonwood Community Garden, which is a garden plots available for the public to grow their own food for their families. Also coordinated the application and interview process. This year we had this past year we had 2 council resignations, and so I coordinated the application process, receiving the applications and the interviews for council to conduct. The goals for this next fiscal year are to coordinate 3 town hall meetings. One of them will be a budget meeting. I'd like to have a town hall meeting before the election to let the public know about the upcoming election and which seats are available, and possibly a candidate meet and greet. Also, I'd like to get 100% of the community garden plots. There are 50 fully leased by June of 2021, and that will be done through more active advertisement and getting the word out on the community garden plots. Challenges for this next fiscal year is a little confusing. There are expand citizen input methods. That's one of the strategic plan objectives for the council in regards to enhanced communication between the council staff and the citizens. One thing that would help with that we have, that my department handles, is the request for public information for all the city departments. Most of them pertain to the building or the fire department. That's the majority of them, but I get requests for public information all throughout the year. They can vary from 2 a week to sometimes 5. We also have requests from in-house from different city departments for information, but a software program would help immensely to track these public information requests and have a means of all the city departments putting in the information that's requested into one place instead of emailing as attachments this information. And it also allows the citizens to create an account, to go in and see what the status of their request for information is. And it also has a component where if there is a charge, which would happen in the case when it's the request for information is of a commercial nature, they're going to use the information to make money with, then there's a component where they can pay for that information before we actually release it. Right now we have a component in the Civic Plus, which is the city's webpage software, but that is just a general request component. It's not specific to request for information, and it's hard to find. It's like I said, it's not specific to request for public information because all the cities across the nation have to deal with requests for information, and so there's software created specifically for that type of requests.
Okay. Any questions?
And is that something we'll be looking at during the budget discussions, Ms. Jimenez?
I did not budget for it specifically. I didn't ask for it in the budget because generally it just gets cut out anyway. But I just wanted to make the council aware that there is software available for that, and that would be very helpful, not only to my department, but to the city to have that type of software. And if Kirsten will allow me to put it in the budget request, we can do that.
Always put it in the budget.
Or at least, something to discuss if we're looking at saving staff time and things along those lines. But also touching on your comment about the form, can we make our, not the public records request, but the general information request form not so hard to find if that's a stated concern? I've not tried to find it, so I don't know if anybody else has had that same experience. But,
Mayor, Councilmember Henry, absolutely, we'll take a look at that. There's been another request recently on our neighborhood officer program. We're looking at that so so it's easier to find those. So we're always looking for ways to upgrade our website. So we'll add it to the list and see what we can do. And it's never too late to add a request. Well, it probably is too late. She's already compiled the document, but we can throw it in. So when directors or managers talk about stuff, I haven't even looked at the list of requests yet. So we haven't begun the process of prioritizing where they fit. We'll be doing that over the next couple of months. But as long as they submitted the request, it's on the table.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So the finance department, which our accomplishments for 2020 are obviously anticipated. This year's not over yet. I have done the research, and we are working on developing a plan to reward employees for sustainable or cost-saving ideas. I've reached out to other cities in Arizona to see what their programs are and any issues or any problems that they've had, and if they have policies and what those are. So I did get response from a couple different cities in Arizona that have initiatives to let employees give cost savings ideas. Some of them where, they get extra vacation time, or they might get, like, if they could calculate the cost savings, they might get a small percentage of that back to them as a reward for having the cost savings. So I'll be looking at those and developing our own plan that we will implement for next budget year. I'm also looking at developing an internal biannual audit of our fixed assets. We did a city's audit with an outside consultant, and we're going to make our own internal audit feature where we are going to send the listings out to the departments, and there you're going to confirm back or tell us that they do have those items, so that we make sure we always know what is in our fixed asset listing. And then we are going to work on getting a monthly informative budget update that will go to council along with your monthly packet that you get. And it might be a month or two behind because we don't get our revenues, we don't get December's revenues in December. They come January, February. But we will be having a one-page document that gives you a budget update. And so our goals for 2021 is to develop an outreach program to get citizen input during the budget process. And if that is a form online or a way that they can submit an idea or they can rate items, I haven't quite developed that yet, but I do plan on that's one of my goals for 2021, is to have a way that citizens can give us budget input without having to come to a meeting, because sometimes they don't want to come to a meeting. Sometimes they just want to tell you what they think. And then we are always trying to streamline the budget process and the planning and the review, because we don't want it to take all of our time or all of your time or all of the department's time. And then since I plan on developing that audit feature, we will implement that for next year. So once that's developed, we will do an internal audit of our fixed assets. And my challenges are that we're short-staffed, and we haven't been able to fill the position for the accounting specialist. And partially we're short-staffed because we're at the same, actually less staff than we were when I started here in 2001. 2001, there were 3 people in the finance department. Currently, there's 2.5. So it's not grown with the city growth and with all the responsibilities that come with that growth of the city. And then another challenge that we always face is the changes that happen in the legislation that reduce our revenues or affect our revenue streams, which we mentioned one earlier with the urban revenue sharing. They make decisions that affect the city's revenue, and that's challenging when we're trying to put a budget together and develop our plan for the next fiscal year. Any questions?
Questions?
No.
No?
So next up is Amanda with Human Resources.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Amanda Wilburn, the HR Director. 3 notable accomplishments for the HR Department for fiscal year 2020 was that we facilitated the placement of 5 interns from the high school into various departments and participated in their boot camp to get them ready for that program. We also implemented the GEM program, which is a peer-to-peer recognition program. We just started that in January, and that's been very successful so far. And also through the safety committee, we raised funds, purchased, and this is projecting also. This is almost done, it's not done yet. We are installing 2 public automatic external defibrillators on Main Street and Old Town. So that's not quite done yet, but is almost done. And then goals for this upcoming budget year is to continue to assist management in right-sizing the organization. I know Ron talked a lot about that in his presentation. We are also trying to update the personnel manual. We have several sections that are almost done and ready to come back to council for approval. So We will be working on that. And then we also are going to continue to work with departments to create an environment where we can recruit and retain high-performing employees to work for the city. One of the most difficult challenges we face in human resources is in recruitment and hiring. I know Ron also talked quite a bit about that already. And it's for various reasons for different positions in different departments, but it includes the minimum wage changes that we've had. We have some compression. We have, you know, sometimes we'll offer someone a position and they can't find housing, so they decline the position. Some of our wages are low. It just varies depending on department and position. So that's one of our biggest challenges. Do you have any questions for me?
Questions for Ms. Wilbur? We're an easy crowd tonight.
Thank you.
So far, I just want to, while she's stepping down, they've left this off, and you'll hear it from Jeff and others tonight. One of the other biggest accomplishments that these folks have done is continue high operation of their departments. We've had a very busy year. We've had an HR, for example, the recruiting and the number of interviews. HR attends almost every single interview out there to assist the hiring managers with the onboarding process and selecting the right people. It's just been really impressive for me to watch finance and HR and IT and all the other departments continue to work with some of the recruitment challenges that they have. I want to highlight the one in HR that talked about the manual. It said modernize. That's an understatement for the work that needs to be done. It is a full manual. Unlike, not all cities are like ours. A lot of cities don't have the depth we do in a personnel manual approved by council. So a lot of cities, and I'm not recommending this yet, have personnel rules general by council and then mostly detailed at the city manager or department head level or wherever it best fits. And so you're able to keep up a little easier with the process. There are things that aren't law compliant that we're working on, you know, that are that far out of date that just haven't been updated. Always follow law first, so it's not that we're not following the law. That's easy. There's no secrets out there about these laws. I mean, we stay in tuned, both at the state and the federal levels, both with HR, the legal team, and myself. So we're not worried about that, but I just can't stress the amount of work that it takes to do our personnel manuals and how much of a priority it's going to be for us next year, and then the work that they're doing.
Well, it's timely since it's our 60th anniversary.
Yes.
I can imagine it says Town of Cottonwood on our employee manual.
No comment.
Yeah, right.
We got all the references to Clarkdale now.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jeff Cook, the Contract and Purchasing Administrator for the City of Cottonwood. And I'm going to touch on the roles and responsibilities of the purchasing department, as well as highlight some goals, accomplishments, and challenges. As many of you know, the purchasing department is a one-person department that reports directly to the deputy city manager. The major responsibilities and roles of the purchasing department are to ensure that the city stays within its own purchasing policies, that we're following state statutes surrounding procurement, and that we're maximizing the effectiveness of the citizens' tax dollars. And a nice segue into accomplishments for fiscal year 2020 was that we procured construction services using the Arizona State Cooperative Program for job order contracting. And although job order contracting isn't new to the city of Cottonwood, piggybacking the state for these services was, and I think it was a good success. We used it on the Mingus wastewater treatment plant roof rehab and repair project, which came in timely and under budget. So I think that'll be a good tool for us moving forward. We also facilitated a new and successful outside agency funding program, which has been spoken of tonight, but we feel that met the objectives of the council in promoting more competition amongst nonprofit agencies locally. Some goals for fiscal year 2021. in accordance with our new city sustainability plan, I'd like to make a procurement that gives a preference to recycled or environmentally friendly products. So I'll use the example of like a low bid situation. We have one bid that's down here for a product. The next lowest is recyclable or environmentally friendly products. Our sustainability plan will say that if the next lowest falls within 5%, and we can verify that it is recyclable or environmentally friendly, we have the option to use a preference to not go with a low bid in the name of sustainability and to be in accordance with our plan. Another goal is to collaborate with community development and the Historic Preservation Commission to actually implement a small matching grant program for a project related to historic preservation. So we're in the stages of fine-tuning the actual application document right now, but then the goal will be to implement that and hopefully have a successful project in fiscal year 2021. Some challenges for 2021, obviously, we've talked about staffing levels of the administrative services team, and I know you may be thinking, well, you're a one-person department. I share an office, and so the effects are felt, but hopefully we'll get that position filled and distribute responsibilities a little more evenly. And then with good economic times like hiring individuals comes hiring contractors as well. So attracting contractors to bid, there's a stigma with city jobs, and we get this a lot. If that's a low bid situation, I don't want to have anything to do with it. So that's a challenge, but we're going to work through that. And whether it's educational component with local contractors, getting them familiar with our process and whatever apprehensions or fears they may have in doing it, maybe they just haven't worked with the city before, and that's all they need is a little nudge to kind of let them know it's really not that difficult. So we'll look at that as a solution to the challenge for 2021. I think that's all I have tonight, and I'll answer any questions you may have.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, before that, I want to add two parts to that. The staffing level is important because he does that accounting job. So in addition to his regular duties, he is the backup accountant and has daily assigned duties. And then an example to the contractor issues he's mentioning, we sent out a bid recently, Streets did, Robert's team, no responses. That's how competitive or busy our contractors in the state of Arizona are currently, that we can send work out and get zero responses.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Cook? Yes?
There is something called APTAN. Have you ever heard of it? It's Arizona Procurement Technical Assistance Network, APTAN. It might be called something else now.
Okay.
Do you work with any kind of procurement coalitions or whatever you want to call them?
I do. I'm not familiar with the one that you've just mentioned.
That's an older name. I think they're called something else now.
I do. I'm part of a listserv, and the SAVE cooperative program basically encompasses every city and town in Arizona, so we're constantly sharing, stealing, borrowing.
Reallocating.
I just had a quick question. So in the packet, there are two different softwares that were discussed, and I thought it was last year you had a goal or had talked about having a software that would track all of the expiration dates for the city contracts. So we knew it, like renewal windows. Is that one of the?
So that is in the packet. It's not part of my presentation, but one of the anticipated accomplishments is to begin using. It's actually DocuSign, right? Is that the one?
I don't.
Well, I'll speak on DocuSign, which that tracks where the contracts are signature, as far as signatures go. As far as expiration dates, I'm not sure that one was funded for a contract management program, if that's the one that you're speaking of.
Were you speaking about keeping track of business license expirations and all that?
I thought it was a magic software that would keep track of every kind of expiration date we wanted to plug into it. And I just wasn't sure if that had actually been funded and implemented or if that was cut. So it was not funded. Okay, just trying to keep, and I couldn't tell because we're talking about Springbrook, and I thought we already had Springbrook.
Oh, that Springbrook was for purchase order approvals in the packet. So in the city, we're currently not using Springbrook to approve purchase orders as a flow, so that was a goal coming up, is to begin implementing that, and that's an anticipated accomplishment for this year as well.
That wasn't what were you thinking?
I thought it was last year, we were talking about just some software that would track I thought it was business license expiration and other such things that would just help us keep on top of that sort of stuff. But
Springbrook tracks the business registrations and licenses. I believe we may be speaking of contracts and certificates of insurance.
Okay.
Yes. Is that Springbrook as well? And
it's not Springbrook, but Amanda and I just learned that through the pool, am I right? They're going to offer to users of the pool a very, sounds robust, certificate of insurance tracking program that not only sends out reminders and alerts and dates when those things are expiring, but we can actually scan a certificate of insurance into our program and it'll read it and automate some sending emails and things like that. So we are excited about that.
Okay.
Is that free of charge to us? We don't know yet. We're hopeful.
Okay.
We believe
we are
it's
hopeful.
free.
That would be great.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, that was it. Thank you. Sorry, it was
Sorry for
not well organized. No.
Okay, good deal.
It's
Thank
on
you.
me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Evening, Jeff.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, it is free. We walked by the table, and they've got 1 million pamphlets out, the Risk Pool does, trying to sell it at our conference up in Sedona a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, well, I've seen it 1 million times. So I walk past. He grabs me. No, you got to see this new thing that we have. And that's the only thing I took from the conference as a handout was this explanation of this program they're starting, because we do spend a lot of time managing certificates of insurance, and this will be a great big save to staff time when it's rolled out.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that.
Good. Evening, Judge.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I want to thank you for allowing me to work alongside you now as your presiding magistrate. It is a real honor to work in a court that is so thorough and so interested in providing the best level of administering justice that we can. And so to me, it sounds a little selfish, but to me, the greatest accomplishment for this year was the fact that you did switch over your presiding magistrate, which allowed everybody to rethink basically everything. Anytime somebody new comes in, you know, there's a level of anxiety and a level of fear for what's going to happen, because no matter how good or nice somebody seems, sometimes that's not always what happens. And we have spent the last 9 months, almost 10 months, really getting to know each other, and we realize our goal, our accomplishments have been, there's a real freedom now to say, oh yeah, this form just doesn't work. Or people aren't understanding this, or the schedule that we have doesn't work for some party. And one of the major parties is actually the county jail. And so we've looked at it all again. And it's been an excellent experience, because instead of ending up with strife and struggle, we've built, I think, a great team. And so, to me, that's the real accomplishment. And other than a hiring decision, that cost nothing for the town. It was just a willingness on the part of the people who stayed in the court to work with somebody brand new, keep an open mind, and see what we could do with what we now had. We added another person to our mix this year, and that was a court security officer. Courts are highly regulated. We are, other than what we do even with Kirsten and finance here, we are overseen by the Supreme Court in every aspect of what we do. And so several years ago, everybody remembers court shootings and things like that. Well, several years ago, the Supreme Court said, you must, no matter how small you are, at some level, start to implement some court security. And this year, we made the big step of implementing from court funds, separate restricted court funds, and from grant money, the hiring of a court security officer. That's been wonderful. Do I need a court security officer? I got to tell you, maybe I'm way overconfident, but I believe I can control a courtroom. And I've never had anybody jump up and rush the bench to try to convince me that I'm not doing a good job. But what having a court security officer does is it lends an air of dignity and precision to everybody who's coming into the court. They then see not a uniformed police officer, not a uniformed security officer. We discussed it and we decided that our court security officer he wanted to wear a suit, he does wear a suit. Boy, does he look professional. And so he's sharp and he greets people professionally. And so people rise to that level. They then walk into a court expecting that their behavior is going to have to be at this professional level that they've been met with at the door. He was a 20-year veteran of the Maricopa County detention system. So he knows people. He knows how to control people. And one of our defendants said that they get better advice from our court security officer than their attorney. And it's knowing that particular defendant, that's probably a very high compliment, but it's not like he's giving legal advice. He's just saying things like, yeah, bring your documents to court. But once again, public likes it. Here's another person that cares right there greeting them at the door. So we have him, and the other accomplishments that is ongoing is our continuing work with homeless and mental health. That's hard. The county is the county jail is doing a huge program. They have great funding from the governor's office to work on mental health. And we're right there at every meeting. We do our own brand of what they do, which is very inexpensive because we use the staff that we have. But that kind of leads to one of our goals, which is, I've heard staffing, I think, from everybody who stood up here. And if we had the staffing back where it used to be, and so what we're missing is about a half of a person, if we had that staffing, we could then fill the gap not only with all the paper things we have to, but we could add some compliance to the court orders that we make. If we tell you to do community service, you agree to do community service. If there's nobody who ever checks to see if you did the community service, it's not very effective. And so if we had the half person that we lost years and years ago, we would add that component back into the system, but it would have the care of some of our people who need some extra mental health help in it too. Because we're pretty aware, and we're trying to be very proactive with that in as inexpensive a manner as we can. One of the things I'm excited about, and I haven't even talked with the Chief Gazelle about this yet, but I have talked with one of his sergeants. I would really like to take a look at our parking fines. I think that they are so high that they're ineffective. You know, when you make a fine too high, people don't want to talk about their behavior. They don't want to talk about the error they made parking in a no parking zone or in a fire zone. What they want to talk about is why you think this is worth $80. And it's a little bit hard to explain that when other jurisdictions don't have fines that are quite that high. And so I'm hoping to work with Sergeant Colt and this year to see if we can bring to you a better parking fine structure. Hard to believe I'm excited about that. It is something that interests me a great deal. And we also hope to expand the paperless court system. We do a good job with our civil traffic tickets right now, although we've used a lot of paper this year because we're waiting for a new civil traffic citation system from the police. But we're hoping to expand that into the criminal area. And that won't affect the people who are coming into the courtroom, because for them, it's the explanation. It's how clearly I can present what their options are, what they're doing there. And it's not, they're not relying on reading that on paper. They're listening to the words that are being said to them. So our challenge, same as everybody's, see if we can come up to a staffing level that can promote us further into the next year into being a really superb department. I have amazing staff. Everybody here is probably amazing, but to me, I have fresh eyes. This isn't something that I have necessarily worked with before. I've worked with great people, but these people are amazing. And so, once again, thank you. And if you have any questions, I might have the answer.
Any questions for Judge Keller?
I've just heard excellent things about you, so thank you.
Well, thank you. I hope you continue to hear that. You know, I want to make one comment about that, and it is that I am very surprised at the honesty level of people who come into court as defendants, and I have had, it's a common occurrence, to tell you the truth, but this morning I had a 92-year-old man explain to me how he never heard a better explanation of the court system. And then I've had teenagers tell me the same thing, and I thought, this is really odd. I don't know if my child would say this to a judge, but so it's unique. So we've got a great court system, and I hope you're proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, as she's taking her seat, you guys made a few good decisions the last 12 or 13 months. She was one of them. I've been over visiting with staff periodically in that building, and they're on fire. They're just happy, smiling, working hard. They're working the jobs you hired them to do or that they were hired to do. A lot of positive things happening over in our court, and a lot of that has to do with our presiding magistrate, so thank you.
Thank you. And we see the reports come in, and you're doing a great volume of work that's good in our community and having a positive impact, so thank you.
Tough act to follow there. Mr. Mayor, Council, I'm Ryan Bigelow, Director for the Cottonwood Public Library. Some of our accomplishments this year, creation and more importantly, the implementation of a strategic plan. This is something that we take back to our Library Advisory Board monthly and let them know kind of where we're at and what we've accomplished, so we're really proud of that. Maximize hours of operation. We were able to change our hours, do some shifting. In total, added 3 hours a week for our operations and didn't spend any extra money doing so. And we just recently received a $4,000 grant to improve our Spanish language materials. We moved them to a more prominent location in the library, and it didn't take us very long to move our current collection. Goals coming up here. We want to continue and improve on sharing the story of how everyone in the community can benefit from their use of the library. Increase our outreach by 10% is the goal. I firmly believe that when I talk to somebody, give me 5 minutes with somebody, I'll tell them a way that they can effectively use our library. We just need to do that more often. Remove empty book stacks and improve flexible spaces in the library for patrons to utilize in the manner of which they please. We've done a lot of weeding since I've been there, meaning removal of old books that have just been sitting there collecting dust. There is some space there for things, and as you plan moving forward, you never know what the next big thing's going to be, so make a flexible space for it and allow for that moving forward. And then we want to evaluate, and if it's feasible, implement a fine-free library, meaning that late fees would be something that we might be able to get rid of. If somebody were to actually lose or damage a book, that would not be something we'd be waiving, but late fees, as we're researching, is definitely a trend nationwide that public libraries specifically are removing that. And that's something that, to their credit, the Library Advisory Board asked me to take a look at. So that's something we're going to do.
I'd sure appreciate it. I mean, on behalf of the community.
No special privileges there, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. And
big offender.
And then one of the challenges, or the biggest challenge that we've had, is just lack of stability of the supervisor position. That position is intended to be kind of my right-hand person, and we just interviewed last week for what would be the fourth supervisor that would work with me in the last 2 years. So I'm a pretty tough guy to work with, apparently, and hopefully we'll get some stability there, and we can really evaluate, where we're at and what our staffing levels are. Because at this point, with 2 years of that instability, it's hard to say where we're at. So, any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say kudos. I think you've been doing a great job, and especially with the increased hours and extra strain, it seems like you've really risen to the occasion, and I'm hearing good things about what's going on at the library. So good work.
Thank you. We have a really good staff, so a lot of credit goes to them.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Mayor and City Council, Richard Faust.
Is this your last presentation?
This is my last budget presentation.
Man.
I think.
Mayor, let me clarify. his last budget presentation, but I put him on the spot. He will be back in front of you in the first meeting in March.
Right, but this is my last budget presentation. Well, maybe. I don't know, unless you guys have that. Okay. See, they don't want me back up here either. One thing I was just going to identify, one of the things I have to admire about Ryan is his taste in socks. The guy dresses up and he still wears those socks, and I mean, there's a variety of them, and it's amazing to me. Ryan, you're great. He's awesome.
Mr. City Attorney, I don't think that's on the agenda.
But he brought it up here, so I was staring at him as he was, sitting there. So I was standing here, so it was great. Okay, accomplishments for economic development this past year. One of the things that council really challenged staff with, and especially the city manager and economic development, was to look at the policy and agreement for the Cottonwood Chamber of Commerce. And that was one of the things that we wanted to do, was to meet council's desire for a more progressive approach to marketing Cottonwood in the future. And I think we're getting there. I think we're steadfast in trying to establish that. But I think in the future it'll be honed in on, I'm pretty sure. So that'll be one of the things that we'll be looking for, even expanding into the future. We also are definitely looking at expanded business callbacks this past year to companies. We thought that there was a possibility we could maybe get additional people to come on board into the city of Cottonwood, but hasn't happened yet. But we did snag a hotel group, so that's a good thing. We're working on another. But again, the main desire is to identify out there that we're open for business. And I think it's really worked. It's been really dynamic, and it's a dynamic opportunity for people to get involved with the city of Cottonwood, definitely.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I want to interrupt because he just made that so quick.
Yeah.
Because of our work, your approval of the program with the Spring Hill Suites, we've already been reached out by another hotel that does not want to wait. They're trying to actively move forward with theirs. They don't want to open up much further behind than when Spring Hill Suites opens up. So thank you to council for that, and thank you to Richard for taking those calls and helping move that along.
We swayed him a little bit by telling him, by the way, Spring Hill Suites just is coming into the city. So that was kind of good. They're like, what? Well, we need to get busy. So they're looking quickly, so we'll wait and see what happens with that. The next item for accomplishments, continued economic development efforts, which have contributed to the recognition of Cottonwood, the Verde Valley, as emerging American wine region in national articles and also polls. And that was one of the things we saw this past year. I've never seen so many polls, as well as the articles that were done by the New York Times, the Phoenix New Times, places like that. Even USA Today did a poll was just incredible to watch. And it was really kind of neat to see the dynamics of the community as everybody started working on the poll, you know, to get Cottonwood up there to number 4 in the country for national polling. And it was a little itty bitty community, and I think they were pretty fired up, so it was kind of fun to watch that. But that is one thing that we really want to stress that we've done last year, we want to continue on, and especially even with the city council, it's something that they need to really press forward in tourism and marketing, and that is a very dynamic approach that they need to continue. And then I think that with the changeover in economic development to tourism and economic development that the city managers identified for the future, for a new person stepping into this role, especially with tourism on the front load, it's going to be a really dynamic type of an individual. I think we'll really see a lot of really neat things coming up, because I think the person that the city manager has planned will be really interesting and will be a great person, and they'll be probably a lot younger than me. Here's our goals. Our goals are focused on grant opportunities with NACOG, economic development involving major project scenarios for sewer, water system build out, our infrastructure. And some of the areas of Cottonwood really needs to be pressed forward. And talking with the utilities department, I know specifically that we need to broaden our expanse down to 60, which probably would need utility structuring all the way from I think it's Mountain Mingus Road, which is really, I think it's right behind the marijuana distribution location there, and in between, Taco Bell and there's Mingus Mountain Road. And that's one place that coming straight down and then heading out 260 is about a mile. And so we've really got a lot to do. We have the same thing going on, then going all the way up 89A, and especially towards, when we look at 89 and Vine, as well as Heartland, all of those places are going to need to have sewer in the future. And so we need to be prepared, and we need to be effective in that as well. And one thing about being effective, again, is going to be probably the opportunity for grants and getting together with NACOG for the Northern Arizona Council of Governments, and especially with their economic development group, and trying to get that as a future build out. But we've got a lot to do on trying to save money as well, because when you're looking at a grant from ED, from NACOG, it's going to be about a 40%. And that's going to be it. And you're looking at a $1 to maybe $1.4 million expansion project that's definitely needed. I mean, that's only 40% of that. So we've got a lot of saving to do as well. And we take a look at it in that context of things. It's an investment. It's an investment into our future and into the, I think, the economic power of Cottonwood in the future and where we will stand in the Verde Valley. So I wanted to bring that out. The continued evaluation and improvement of the city's efforts towards being a more business receptive organization with regard to being open for business. And again, the city managers identified that. It was one of the first things I learned when we stepped out and we did an article with Verde Independent, is we're open for business. And you know, that really struck home, but we really are. We've done a lot this last year. It's made an impact. And I think in the future, when I look back, or when I look forward, and I'll be sitting in my chair or somewhere, I hope that that's what I see is the impact into the future of Cottonwood, because it's a great community, and we'll see some dynamic changes here in the future. That'll be good. The next item is focus on workforce housing, which the city managers identified. Ron really impressed upon that. It is an investment into our community and to the future of our community, and we got to really look at that. It's something that we need to structure ourselves on with guidelines. I know we had met with CAO Ron Husse and his group, and especially with Inspiration Project. And Ron was identifying the specifics of the hospital and the circumstances there, that they're caught in a really bad predicament. They need qualified people, but they don't have housing. And it's really, it's a bad situation. I know one of my doctors that I've talked to in the past, a young man, 34 years of age, and he had to buy a place up in Clarkdale. And you know, and he was really, you know, wanting to buy here in Cottonwood, but he said, you know, it was just too expensive, or there just was not the aspect of finding a place for him as a young single man that he could find anything. And so that's always impressed me, and that's something we've really got to grab hold of because we're being strangled in that area, and especially even the hospital, the nursing staff, and especially our traveling nursing staff, and your doctors and your specialized surgeons in place and things like that, to where Ron Hasse was indicating that directly to Inspiration, this is something that we invest in, that we've got to have. And that was one thing that struck both Ron and I.
If I can add, they had 2 training programs that they had to cancel with partners because they didn't have anywhere to put the students. I believe respiratory specialist therapist was one of them, and it may have been x-ray the other one, but they had 2 intern training partnerships, and they had to cancel because they couldn't find local areas for those people to stay while they went through the training program and housing. So the hospital is one of our larger employers in the area. They've stepped up to the plate. They're working with us, or they're part of Vivi Rio. They're working with private developers. They're doing, I mean, Ron is doing a fantastic job thinking outside the box on how to solve the issues they're facing. But it is an overwhelming problem. Economic development, I think, is hampered in Cottonwood and the Verde Valley because of housing.
All right, I'll move forward quicker here. Talking about NACOG, that's our top challenge, I think. In reality, it's one of the big ones for economic development in the next year. And the Tourism Economic Development Director in the future is going to have to be ready. There's a lot going on with NACOG, and they are moving forward. They've made contact with us as well this past year. And it was kind of, it was one of those great things that Terry Drew had actually done, was reached out to me and indicated, what has Cottonwood got going on for future projects? And so we responded back, here they are. And it was just exactly pretty much the same thing I talked to you about, involving utilities and infrastructure investment, and especially along the 260 corridor. We've got individuals out there that own property, and they're looking at their investment and saying, okay, what's this going to be in the future? Where's Cottonwood going to be to help us? I mean, we shouldn't be there for everybody, but again, that's going to be a very good help for us to branch out and launch down 260, at least close by, to where we can, get infrastructure out to those areas, and we can actually broaden out business in the future, because that, again, is a business investment. Talked about all of that. Continue working effectively with the Chamber of Commerce and the wine industry, the Wine Consortium. The Wine Consortium is a great group of people. They're amazing individuals. They really have the forward thinking that we are looking for in the Verde Valley, and especially Cottonwood. And they are looking for our assistance. In a lot of the different time periods that I was at those meetings, they constantly were talking about Cottonwood and assisting them, helping them. They very much appreciated the funding that was given in the grant. They talked about it continuously, and they still do. So it's a great thing to see. So, but they are just one of the groups there that we need to branch out and keep hold of there, especially for the heart of Arizona wine country and how we actually provide information out there. And the tourism aspect, it's going to be the same way with the Chamber. It's affecting the Chamber very much so that we've got to get the word out even more so than what they have been. So that's going to be something that's going to have to be done, and basically pulling a lot more of the tourism dollars from the Sedona market. They're trying to push people out. We just need to start getting the money over here. So that's one of those things. More effort will be needed in trying to focus efforts in education involving development of workforce housing. And again, that was something that was already mentioned by the city manager and what we're talking about here. So that is a very, very complicated situation, but it's something we need to address as the council and staff together and try to work with these people. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Faust? I just want to say I've sat through many presentations from you as in your other role as Parks and Rec Manager, Director, and I just want to say thanks for, you seamlessly fell into this role in economic development, and it's very clear you've been working very hard and doing an exceptional job, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a great challenge, very rewarding type of a position. That's why when you find somebody, it's a reward in that context, because you see a lot of growth, you concentrate on it, you know, it's a very effective position, and it's great, and it's very, I guess there's a lot that weighs on this position, but I know that you'll find somebody that's really good, and I know Ron will do it, so.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I can just take a minute, we'll have his retirement dinner, lunch, March 14th. which 13th, which some will talk nice, and I hear others may not talk so nice.
That's
so
good.
we'll see how that goes. But your point is well taken. He was a Parks and Rec manager to consolidate positions. We moved him into economic development. He said yes before he left the office. When I talked to other people, they thought I was crazy. I ended up being right. And I don't always get it right, but I just couldn't have been prouder of the job he's done. He's bridged a gap for us. He's repaired bridges. He has moved us forward. There's always room for improvement. We're going to do great things as we move forward.
That's right.
But Richard, you've exceeded my expectations, and I couldn't have been prouder to have you as a partner for this last year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any questions, anybody? All right. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure being working here for 29 and a half years. So, it's been great. It really has. So thank you again for that opportunity.
Thank you.
Before Kirsten wraps up, I just want to make sure that council knows that new people may not know, but this is a new way of doing this format. We're going to continue with this process this way. Single PowerPoint, highlights, challenges. So Kirsten put a lot of effort into this and has been very strict on what she allows in and doesn't. So kudos to her and her team. But as long as it pleases council, we'll continue with this the rest of the budget process.
Yes.
I think so. It's been great. The process has been getting better and better, easier to understand, good information and how it's packaged. It's just kept getting better, so thank you.
Agreed. Yeah.
That is the goal, is to make it easier to process and a little less time consuming, but still informative. So we appreciate your time. We'll be back at the next work session next month with another grouping of goals and accomplishments from different departments. And then the work session in March and one in April will be back. And then that'll be the end of our goals and accomplishments, and we'll start working on the actual budget numbers after that.
Great.
But thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, I would move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion. Councilmember Henry seconded it. All in what?
We have a second meeting.
Correct, but we have to adjourn this one.
Don't leave.
Mayor made the motion. Councilmember Henry seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're adjourned. And then. To be held February 11th, 2020, immediately following a work session. Please take roll.
Councilmember Henry?
Here.
Councilmember Halls?
Here.
Councilmember Naren?
Here.
Councilmember Wilden?
Here.
Mayor Litsky?
Here. Okay, items for discussion, consideration, possible direction to staff. Discussion and possible approval of a proposed professional services agreement with Norris Design for Parks and Recreation, landscape architecture, and master planning services. Evening.
Evening. Mr. Mayor, Council, Hezekiah with the Parks Recreation Department. I promise to make this really quick. So basically, we developed the dream team to start this process. They let me play on the team, which was nice. Robert, Scott, myself, Jeff helped us out with the procurement process. It was a great process. The first part was to market it. We had two great firms put in applications, being Norris Design and Green Play. Both of them have wonderful portfolios. It was a hard choice between the two. And then we evaluated the two. We had a great brain trust in Richard being able to help us out with that process. And then we started negotiations after we decided Norris was the best, most advocate for the city. In addition to that, we sent it out to, once we got a proposal from Norris Design, we sent it out to Peoria, John Septon with that department to review, and then also Buckeye, Miranda Gomez with that department to review to make sure that what we're doing makes sense. Those two departments have a lot of experience, so it was great to use them as well in this process. So Norris Design was the one that was chosen. We came in under budget, negotiated them down from $150,000 to the $96,000. So if council has any questions.
Questions from council?
I just make a comment that we've been working on this for, 3 years, 4 years with Norris Design, and they've always done a very good job for us. and I think we should continue on with them.
Okay. Do you want to just talk just for a second about what the deliverable is going to be for the community and how they can benefit from this?
Yes, so basically when you look at this, the plan will be more of an audit of the system that we have, looking at all the parks, the programmings, the level of service that we provide, the facilities that provide, benchmarking us against other communities, and also looking nationwide to look at what trends are moving forward. We'll get an action plan, we'll get a strategic plan, and then we'll get a master plan that's a 10-year document. What's important to note is that this is a valuable tool for us to be able to go after grant funds. When you go after those larger grant funds, and Richard can probably attest, you have to show a plan that's vetted by the public. They don't want to give large sums of money not knowing what the future is going to hold. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Mayor.
The prioritization list is very important for us to help us focus. The community input is probably our most valuable part of this. They're tasked with going out to the community and find out what the community wants, where they want us to make improvements. You know, we have a pocket park, we have Riverfront, we have Garrison, we have some great amenity and stuff. Excuse me, it's time. But the public input to tell us about next steps for budget funding. They'll incorporate the plan that was just completed for Riverfront. We're also hoping that eventually we'll be able to get some wayfinding stuff done. And if there's money left, we hope to get a plan designed for water for Riverfront Park to turn that over to reclaimed water. Right. So there's a lot of hope, and we'll make those dollars stretch just as far as we can. We beat this one up pretty good, trying to get the price down and make sure that we only paid for what we needed. And the city attorney's not too bad at looking at that stuff either. He helped us with that.
Very good.
And I don't have any questions either. I just really hope that our finished project or product provides us with realistic plans that we can actually implement, and not items that are, you know, so expensive or just kind of nice to have, but how are we ever going to be able to get the funding to get there? But I did think, as far as the contract price and the agreement for this particular contract, I think everything looked good, and I'm hopeful again of what we'll get as far as the end product.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Councilman Henry, the city manager really made it a point when we do the benchmarking process that we benchmark against communities with similar resources. So hopefully that'll narrow the scope to make sure we get stuff on our plan that is actually achievable with the resources and funds that we have. And that's part of doing a strategic plan that's systematic and not going like far out there and far-fetched. We want something that's workable, and so that when we come back to you in years in the future, you're seeing this plan actually come to fruition as we go out and beat the bushes for grants.
Right.
Thank you.
Is that done, benchmarking? Are you going to benchmark any more, or is that done?
We haven't started, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Wilden, we haven't started that process. Once we start the master planning process with Norris Design, after council makes their decision, then we'll start the benchmarking as a part of the master plan.
Okay, I know, and the reason I say that, surprise, when it was a small surprise, has an excellent recreation department. Peoria does as well, and I'm sure there's others, but they used to be a small community. And another thought of mine was, Wickenburg, as small as it is, they have, I think, national softball tournaments. We have enough softball areas that maybe we could even think about something like that.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Woodman, I think with the focus on tourism, that might help drive some of the plan, focusing on tournaments and things like that that bring people to the area, support sales tax dollars, and then outdoor activities.
Right. Very good. Must be a proud moment for you, Mr. Hulse. I know you've been working on this for a lot of years. Your involvement on the Parks and Rec Commission. So.
Yep. Yeah, we're making progress. Goal is to complete the park system before I retire from the commission at the end of this year.
On it, sir.
Would you care to make a motion?
Yeah. I would make a motion that we accept the professional services agreement with Norris Design for Parks and Recreation, landscape architecture, and master planning services.
Second that. Councilmember Hulse made the motion, Mayor seconded it. If we could have a roll call vote.
Councilmember Henry?
Yes.
Councilmember Hulse?
Yes.
Councilmember Naren?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden?
Yes.
Mayor Alinsky?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Great, thank you. All right, and I'll move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion. Councilmember Henry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You're big on that German. I love it.